You are 13 years old and you will never see your family again. You do not know this yet and nobody is going to tell you. You know only that officials came to your village and your parents could not say no. By the time you understand what has happened, the gates of Topkapi Palace have already closed behind you. The Ottoman harem is one of the most misunderstood institutions in all of history. Magnificent Century gave it 50 million viewers and got almost everything wrong. The real harem was not a gilded cage full of women competing for one man's attention. It was something considerably stranger and considerably more powerful than that. For over a century, it was the actual seat of Ottoman political power. The women inside it ran an empire. They signed treaties, directed military appointments, and corresponded with foreign kings. Most of them never shared a bed with the Sultan. Most of them left after 9 years with money, connections, and a future. One of them broke every rule the empire had ever written about women in power. She rewrote those rules, and the women who came after her governed for a century. This is what life inside the Ottoman harem actually looked like. The word harem comes from the Arabic for forbidden or sacred space. It referred to the private household of the Sultan and everyone who lived inside it. At its peak, the Topkapi Palace harem housed roughly 300 women at any given time. You are one of those 300 women now. You are not a prisoner and you are not an ornament. You are a student in the most rigorous finishing school in the Ottoman world. Your education begins immediately and it does not stop for years. You learn Ottoman Turkish, Arabic, and Persian. You learn music, calligraphy, and the art of formal court conversation. You learn household administration, financial management, and imperial protocol. The women who teach you are former students who rose through exactly the same system. They are not gentle with you because the system was not gentle with them. Intelligence and competence are the selection criteria here. A woman who can read 3 languages and manage a budget is worth more than one who cannot. This is not the version Magnificent Century chose to show. It is the version the Ottoman archives confirm. You arrived through one of 2 routes. Some girls were purchased from merchants who sourced them across the empire. Others were gifts from provincial governors and foreign rulers seeking favor at court. Most came from the Balkans, the Caucasus, and the territories around the Black Sea. You were separated from your family and your previous life completely and permanently. That part is real, and it is genuinely dark. What happens after the separation is considerably more complicated than the drama shows. The popular image of women locked in jeweled rooms waiting to be summoned is not history. It is a fantasy built from European imagination and selective storytelling. You are not sitting quietly and waiting to be noticed. You are working harder than you have worked in your entire life. The harem operates on a formal service structure that most people have never heard of. You have a defined path through it. You begin as a novice learning the basic requirements of palace life. You progress through levels of seniority based on demonstrated skill and competence. At each level, your responsibilities increase and so do your privileges. Women who rise high enough become the personal attendants of senior imperial women. These positions carry real authority within the palace hierarchy. After 9 years of service, if the Sultan has not selected you, then you are formally freed. You receive a financial settlement funded directly from imperial revenues. You received letters of recommendation introducing you to eligible husbands. Those husbands are not ordinary men from ordinary families. They are senior court officials, military commanders, and provincial governors. You leave the harem after 9 years educated, connected, and financially independent. You are one of the most desirable marriage prospects in the entire empire. Many former harem women became the wives of grand viziers and provincial rulers. They brought their palace education and their court connections into those marriages. Through their husbands, they continued influencing Ottoman governance for decades. The harem did not trap most of its women inside a life they did not choose. For most women, it was the most reliable path to influence available anywhere in the empire. That is not a comfortable fact for the narrative that the drama built. But it is what the historical record shows clearly and consistently. The women selected by the Sultan enter a different and considerably harder path. Being chosen means bearing the weight of succession politics in an empire where the wrong son means civil war. It means navigating a court where every alliance is conditional and every rival is calculating. It means understanding that the child you carry is both your protection and your most visible target. The competition is real, and the methods used are not always confined to social maneuvering. Women in the upper ranks have access to physicians, compounds, and networks of informants. The same tools that protect a pregnancy can be used to end someone else's. This is the actual competition the drama simplified into glamorous rivalry. The real version is not glamorous in any sense. It is the most intensely political environment in the empire, conducted without any official recognition. You have no formal title, no legal standing, and no protection if you lose. What you have is skill, patience, and the willingness to use every resource available. The education the harem gave you was not incidental to this competition. It was the precise foundation everything else was built on. The harem turned you into one of the most politically educated women in the empire, and then placed you in an arena where that education was the only weapon that mattered. Hurrem Sultan was born somewhere in what is now Ukraine, probably around 1502. She entered the harem as an enslaved girl and rose to become the most powerful woman in Ottoman history. She broke rules that had governed the empire for 200 years without interruption. Ottoman sultans did not marry their concubines under any circumstances. The prohibition existed specifically to prevent any one woman from accumulating too much political influence. Suleiman the Magnificent married Hurrem regardless of that prohibition. Her rivals said she had used witchcraft to make him abandon every Ottoman custom protecting against female power. They accused her formally, and the accusation was taken seriously by people with genuine political reasons to believe it. The accusation tells you exactly how unprecedented her influence was. When the old rules failed to explain what was happening, the court reached for the supernatural. Hurrem's letters to the Polish King Sigismund II survive in the diplomatic archives today. They show a woman conducting foreign policy on behalf of an empire. She wrote about trade agreements, political alliances, and the terms of peace between nations. She was a slave who became a queen, who became a diplomat, whose correspondence historians still study. But Hurrem was not the end of the story. She was the beginning of something considerably larger than her own reign. From roughly 1533 to 1656, the Ottoman Empire was effectively governed by its women. Historians call this period the Sultanate of Women. This period has almost no presence in Western history education at any level. The Valide Sultan during this period was not a ceremonial or symbolic figure. She controlled her own budget drawn directly from imperial revenues every year. She had her own seal and her own correspondence network throughout the entire empire. She managed the transition of power when sultans died and determined succession outcomes. She decided which of her grandsons would ascend the throne when the moment came. The French ambassador to Constantinople wrote in 1608 that the Valide Sultan held more real power than the Sultan himself. He was reporting what he observed directly at court over years of diplomatic service. Kosem Sultan governed the empire as regent for 2 successive child sultans across decades. She was not an advisor in the background making quiet suggestions to men with formal power. She signed imperial decrees, directed military campaigns, and managed the treasury of the largest empire in the world. She corresponded with the rulers of Persia, Venice, and the Dutch Republic on matters of war and trade. She determined which of her grandsons would become the next sultan, and made sure the others could not interfere. She built alliances with the Janissary Corps that gave her the military backing to enforce her decisions. She governed through crises that would have broken most rulers regardless of their gender. She was strangled in her bedroom in 1651 by the servants of her daughter-in-law, who wanted the regency for herself. The woman who replaced her governed just as effectively and just as ruthlessly. The Sultanate of Women ended not because women ran out of ability or ambition. It ended because a new Grand Vizier arrived determined to restore male control over the court. He spent years dismantling the networks and removing the authority piece by piece until it was gone. The women who had governed the largest empire in the world were returned to ceremonial roles. The correspondence networks were taken apart and the political authority was transferred back to men. The historical record of what those women achieved was not destroyed by anyone. It was simply left out of the version of history that got written down and taught. A slave girl from Ukraine married a sultan and changed the rules of an empire. Her successors ran that empire for a century from inside a building everyone dismissed as a pleasure palace. You entered those gates at 13 and you could not have imagined where this leads. You were never just waiting inside those walls. You were never simply competing for one man's attention. You were governing the largest empire on earth.